We're now live.
Right, good morning to you all and welcome to the first meeting of the West Mercia Supplies Pension Joint Committee. I think it really technically, although it's been agreed that I'm going to chair, it's over to James so I get elected.
Yeah, thank you. If I just do a quick introduction then for everybody, and then we'll go into the agenda. So, welcome to the meeting of the West Mercia Supplies Pension Joint Committee. My name is James Watson. I'm the Shropshire Council's Director of Finance, Governance and Assurance, which is the lead authority for the WMS Pension Joint Committee. I'm also the Treasurer for the employer that is West Mercia Supplies Pension. I'm obliged to inform you that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Members of the public will be able to hear the audio of the meeting and view the papers that are shown on the screen. The meeting is being held using remote technology, and should any committee members experience technical difficulties during the meeting, they should immediately contact the designated IT officer on the number they have already been supplied with. Everyone is requested to mute their microphones unless asked to speak. Please only use the chat function to indicate the desire to speak. Do not use it for anything else, so that it is clear who is asking to speak, and the debate has to be heard by those listening to the audio feed. The Chair will interpret the Council's existing standing orders in the light of requirements of remote participation, with advice from the monitoring officer or myself prior to making a ruling. At the start of the meeting, members of the committee will be asked to confirm their presence and any disclosable pecuniary interests they have in any of the items on the agenda. Everyone that speaks during the meeting, including members of the committee and officers, are asked to introduce themselves each time before they speak. This is so that those listening know who is speaking. So I'll now do a quick roll call and declarations of interest for the members. So members are reminded they should declare any interests which may lead to conflicts of interest in the subject area or any specific agenda item of this meeting. So I'll read out each member's name and ask them to confirm their presence and to confirm if they have any interests. So, Councillor Liz Harvey.
I'm present, no interest to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Gemma Davis.
I'm present, nothing to declare. Can I just ask a quick question?
Certainly.
How do those of us who have dialed in indicate that we want to raise a question?
I think you're just going to have to just at an appropriate point, the chair or myself will ask if there are any questions. Otherwise, it can have to be just try and step in if there's a pause at an appropriate moment if we're in the middle of a paper or whatever. Okay, to continue with the roll call, Councillor Peter Nutty.
Present, nothing to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Robert Macy.
Present, nothing to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Lee Carter. Councillor Lee Carter is here. Is Councillor Lee Carter here?
I don't think he's present. It's Emily, committee officer, speaking.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on then, Councillor Ray Evans.
Present and nothing to declare.
Thank you. Councillor John Smith.
He sent his apologies.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Adrian Hardman.
Yeah, present, and I have nothing to declare.
Okay, so I will now quickly ask officers to introduce themselves, and to make this as simple as possible, I'll just ask each authority in turn to introduce the officers from that authority. So to start with Shropshire Council, I've introduced myself. Are there any other officers from Shropshire Council present on the call?
Emily Marshall, committee officer.
Okay, thank you. Worcestershire Council, any officers present? Okay.
Mark Sanders, Chief Accountant from Worcestershire County Council.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, moving on. Herefordshire Council.
Hi,
Karen Morris, I'm a finance manager at Herefordshire Council representing Andrew Lovegrove.
Thank you very much. And Telford and Wrekin Council.
Hello, Kenneth Clark, Director of Finance and HR at Telford and Wrekin.
Thank you. And do we have anybody from West Mercia Energy here?
Yes, Nigel Evans, Director, West Mercia Energy.
Thank you, Nigel. And is there anybody else present as an officer or a member that I have not asked to speak? Okay, that looks good. So we now move on to the agenda and the election of chairman. So first question, are there any nominations for the position of chairman, please?
Can I put forward Adrian Hardman, please? It's Peter Nutting from Shropshire.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder for that, please?
Well, I suppose I can always second myself.
James, Councillor Robert Macy, I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have a nominee and a seconder. If there are no other nominations, we'll now take the vote. So I'll read out the names of the board members present and entitled to vote on this item and then confirm the result.
Well, if there are no other nominations, I don't think we need a vote.
I think we do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
We better just go through the vote just for the governance process. So Councillor Liz Harvey. They're just taking the votes. Councillor Liz Harvey, are you able to vote?
4.
4, thank you. Councillor Gemma Davis.
4.
Councillor Peter Nutting.
4.
Councillor Robert Macy.
4.
Councillor Ray Evans.
Abstain.
And Councillor Adrian Hardman.
4.
Thank you. On that basis, Councillor Adrian Hardman has been elected chairman, so I'll now ask the chair to take over. Thank you.
Right, we'll move on to item 2 then. Apologies for absence. Emily, do we have any apologies?
Thank you. It's Emily Marshall, Committee Officer. Yes, we have apologies from Councillor John Smith.
Thank you very much. Duly noted. Moving on to the appointment of the Vice Chair. Can I have any nominations for the position of Vice Chairman? From the Chair, if there are no nominations, I don't hear anybody. I'd like to nominate Peter Nutting. And I look for a seconder for Peter.
Can I just ask, sorry, it's Councillor Davis, can I ask a question on whether or not, if there's a conflict when it's the chair of WME and this pensions committee? I just wondered if that could be clarified.
There should be no conflict in relation to WME and WMS pension, but if something arises, then we would switch from the chair to the vice chair as necessary.
Okay.
Hi, it's Councillor Robert Macy. I'm happy to second the nomination.
Right, thank you very much. So we have Councillor Peter Nutting duly nominated and seconded. Do we have any other nominations? Right, because of the way that we do things in Shropshire, I'm going to ask the Treasurer to name, even though we only have one candidate, to name out the names of the board present and entitled to vote on this item, and then confirm the result of this vote.
Thank you, Chair. Can I have the votes, please, from Councillor Liz Harvey?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Gemma Davis?
4.
Councillor Peter Nutting?
4.
Councillor Robert Macy?
4.
Councillor Ray Evans?
Abstain.
And Councillor Adrian Hardman?
4.
Thank you.
So, sorry, you carry on, James.
So Peter Hunting has been elected as the Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations, Peter.
It's an honour.
So moving on to public question time. Have we had any questions from members of the public?
Thank you, Chair. It's Emily Marshall, Committee Officer. We haven't received any public questions.
Thank you very much. We've dealt with disposable pecuniary interests, but if anybody's thought of anything else they should add. If not, I'm going to move on to item 6, which is policy decisions 2020 to 21. James, over to you just to present this item.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So if I can just very briefly kind of summarise where we are today in terms of the papers that are on the agenda, and then I'll give a brief introduction to this particular paper. So to remind everyone, the West Mercia Supplies Pension Joint Committee was set up to manage the pension liabilities of former West Mercia Supplies employees. So when West Mercia Supplies was sold several years ago, the sale went through, but the pension liability for its employees was retained by the 4 authorities and has previously been included with within the West Mercia Energy accounts. And those liability payments were recorded within that. A decision was taken by the cabinets or their equivalent decision-making parties at each of the WME owning authorities to set up a new employer within Shropshire County Pension Fund, which is called WMS Pension, and all their pension liabilities will be managed through that and via a joint committee. So on the agenda we have 3 papers. The first one, the policy decision, sets the policy for the next year. The second paper then sets out what the charges will be for the current year, and then there's a final paper which sets out delegations to myself. So in terms of this paper, the policy decisions for 21-22, there are 2 recommendations within this. One is to look at the options for the policy arrangements for deficit recovery payments for next year, and I'll come back to that in a moment. The second recommendation, which is the easier one, so I'll go through that one first. The second recommendation is around agreeing the policy for compensatory added years benefits, lead authority costs and other costs. So in section 7.2, 7.3 and 7.4, this sets out the basis and the policy under which these charges are identified and then charged. So with compensatory added years benefits, this was a solution for employees that took early retirement many years ago, and an annual payment is made every year to compensate the pension fund for those payments, pension payments being drawn early. Those payments go out on a monthly basis from Shropshire Council's accounts to the pension fund, and the policy decision is that what we would then do is charge back those charges in a single payment halfway through the year on a 25% share to each of the member authorities. Section 7.3 covers the lead authority costs. So these are the costs for Shropshire Council basically managing the employer, that is WMS Pension. Again, those costs will be incurred over the year, but a single charge will be made in the middle of the year to cover those. And section 7.4 includes those other kind of external costs with the actuary or with external audit in managing the WMS pension. So all of those areas are fairly simplistic, and the policy is basically to say we will take those charges through and charge them back in the middle of the year. Back to section 7.1, which is the first recommendation. This is where the bulk of the costs fall for WMS pension. So this is around the deficit recovery payments. So this is basically the triennial valuation of the pension fund for this set of former employers, identifies the difference between the assets that are held in the fund for those employees and the actual liability that's due over the coming years for the payment of those pensions. And where there's an imbalance between the two, which there is at the moment, then an additional liability charge is payable to the pension fund. So over a period of typically 16 to 25 years, a repayment profile is set up. So that repayment profile is there, but there are options in which those payments can be made into the pension fund. So the standard approach, the default approach, is that on a monthly basis, the amount for the year, is divided by 12, and then that's paid through to the pension fund on a monthly basis. That's what, for the current year, Shropshire Council is doing. And so for the current year, the policy is to say that halfway through the year, we will charge for that amount. However, going forward into next year, so looking at the 21-22 financial year, we could continue to pay. Shropshire Council could continue to pay those monthly payments for the deficit, and then recover that halfway through the year. Alternatively, because the pension fund generates a much higher return generally over the long term than a local authority would from its own treasury management processes. Because there's a high return within the pension fund, there's actually a benefit to paying that payment across much earlier in the year. So by paying the full amount in, say, April, you can pay net a smaller amount than if you paid it every single month. So the disbenefit to the authority is you're paying that money out much earlier, but the benefit is that the amount of money that you'll make within the pension fund is generally greater than you would make by hanging on to that money over the year. So therefore, financially, it reduces. Now, there's a third option which says, under normal circumstances, you could pay the whole 3 years for each valuation up front. Because we're already a year in, we could only pay 2 years up front. So you could pay the whole 21-22 and 22-23 together in one lump sum payment. And the paper sets out what the implications of those would be in terms of the actual cost. Now, there is, because of we're trying to keep the administration as simple as possible, and rather than having several payment dates, what we're looking to do is to continue to have a single payment date in October. But obviously, if Shropshire Council is making a payment in April on behalf of the 4 member authorities, then there is going to be a cash flow implication for Shropshire Council. So there's a saving in relation to paying the pension fund early, and then there is a compensation back to Shropshire Council for that payment then not being recompensed from the other member authorities until kind of October time, to keep the administration simple. So the table that's shown within section 7.1.7 demonstrates what the annual cost is estimated to be if it's made on a monthly basis. Option 2 sets out what it would be if that payment was made up front on the 1st of April 2021. And option 3 sets out what the payment of the 21-22 and the 22-23 payment in bulk would be if it was paid on the 1st of April 2021. Now, from my point of view, speaking as Treasurer, I'm indifferent in terms of which option the Joint Committee wish to take. So therefore, there is no recommendation to say we recommend you choose option 1, 2 or 3. The only question, the only point here is that all authorities must agree on a particular option. We can't have different options for different authorities. So I need all authorities to agree on an option. And in the absence of reaching a consensus, we would fall back to option 1, which is the default option of paying on a monthly basis and recovering that funding in October. So hopefully that bit's a bit complicated, so I wanted to go into that into a little bit more detail. Happy to take any questions on that, but fundamentally it then comes back to debating that first recommendation and then deciding on which option you would like to choose in relation to that. So I'll hand over to you now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, I think that was pretty clear, actually, James. Peter, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I mean, I originally, having read the report, I was considering option 1, but actually I hadn't sort of thought about the arrangements, how much more work would be involved doing 12 payments rather than just one a year, and the amounts of money are relatively modest. So I am sort of now leaning towards option 2, I think, really. But I'm happy to agree. I wouldn't want to fall out with any of the authorities over this. I think, you know, a sensible way forward. But if I had to pick one, I suppose option 2 makes it easier in terms of officer time, etc. But I don't know how much time that really involves. But I think that's what James was suggesting. Doing option 1 is a bit of a pain to him, really, or to the people who are doing the work. Is that a fair comment, James?
I mean, in terms of the monthly payments going through, that will all be automated. It really, it's not a massive difference one way or another. The other thing I should have just added is we've estimated what that compensation payment would be for Shropshire Council. What we would do in the following year, we wouldn't have estimated, we'd actually tell you what the average return was within Shropshire and therefore the actual cost of that cash flow, and we would then adjust that payment as necessary in the following year. So, you know, that compensation for Shropshire Council will be the actual figure. It's just an estimate at the moment to give a reasonable feel for that. But in terms of the options that are taken, it really comes down to whether you want to just save a bit of money for the owning authorities, the member authorities, or just make it simplistic. It's I say I'm fairly indifferent to whichever option is taken.
Could I ask a question, please? It's
yeah, do. Come on.
Could we just have clarified precisely the maximum amount of money we're looking at saving here, which looks like it might be option 3?
Yeah, James, I mean, it was my take that option 3 would be the most cost efficient. Are Councillor Evans and myself right in this?
Yeah, that's correct. Again, we're not talking about huge sums of money. So the annual cost for option 1 is £181,900. So just short of 182,000. Option 2 reduces that payment down to 178,153. So just over 178,000. So on that basis, it's saving about £3,000. Now, because that payment is made early in the year and would be covered by Shropshire Council, we estimate the compensation is about £1,000. So the net saving is about £2,000 on the basis of that, which would then be split between the owning authorities.
Or for any authorities.
Yeah. If you go with option 3, then you're doubling that payment up. So that 178,000 doubles up to just to 355,718. So that's not saving a massive amount more, but is saving a little bit more. So for each owning authority, then they would pay 25% of that payment. And obviously, there's a lot more compensation for Shropshire Council in relation to option 3, because by paying across £356,000, that is in effect. It's 18 months ahead of the payment being due in the second year case. So that would be a compensation of £2,100. So all in all, we're talking about to each of the member authorities, just make it clear, option 1, 45,475, option 2, 44,788, and option 3 on an annual basis, 44,727. We're not talking about massive figures here. But it is a principle. I know with a number of other authorities, Shropshire Council, for example, does pay its pension contributions annually in advance to take the saving. We're talking about millions of pounds there, so you get a bigger saving. I believe Telford did. I believe Worcester did. I'm not sure about Hereford.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. I'm used to reading spreadsheets and tables at the moment that are dealing with thousands and millions. So I was just checking that we're talking about a maximum saving per authority of less than £750 a year. Just checking, what is the saving in terms of administration of making the upfront payments?
So if we make a single upfront payment, then we obviously we just need to organise that payment in April. Otherwise, we just have to set a monthly payment to go through the system. So it isn't administratively burdensome, whichever option we choose. But obviously, only paying a single payment does save time and effort. But it's fairly marginal, if I'm honest.
Right, do we have anybody else wants to speak? Peter, are you still in favour of option 2? Because I think I probably would favour option 3.
I'm relaxed about this. As I say, the amounts of money aren't huge, so in terms of council budgets, so I'm quite chilled. If you want to go for option 3, I could live with option 3. Yeah.
Well, if there are no other questions, I'll just check, is Gemma all right, because you can't sort of indicate to us. Hopefully you're still with us.
Hiya, sorry, there's a huge delay whenever we unmute ourselves on when you dial in. So no, I've got no questions, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davis. Well, if I can propose from the chair that we go with option 3, and look for a seconder.
Yeah, happy to second that, Peter Nutting.
Thank you very much indeed. And Clark, would you like to do the roll call for us?
Hi, it's Emily Marshall, Committee Officer. Okay, so I'll read out the names in turn. So Councillor Ray Evans.
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Councillor Hardman.
Yes, I'm fine, agreed.
Councillor Robert Macy.
Agreed.
Councillor Peter Nutting.
Agreed.
Councillor Gemma Davis.
Agreed.
And Councillor Liz Harvey.
Agreed.
Thank you very much.
Unanimous.
Thank you very much. So that's agreed. And we also agreed the other recommendations, but we're going with option 3. I think that was the real decision there to be made. So we can now move on to item 7, providing everybody's happy, which is over to James, I think, again, which is the pension liability charges.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So paper 7 sets out the pension liability charges for the current year. So each year what we will do is bring this paper along, which enables the charges for the current year to be identified. Now, what would normally happen is we would hold this meeting very close to the WME Joint Committee, which will then enable us to make these decisions in September, which means we would then invoice in early October and payments would be due by the end of October. This year, because we are this is the inaugural meeting and we're holding it in December, we're going to shift those payment dates as necessary. So basically this then works within the policy that's been agreed. Now clearly we weren't able to agree the policy for this year, given this is the inaugural meeting within the current financial year. So what we've done is we've set out what those charges are for each of the areas, and I'll just quickly run through each of those. So in section 7, section 7.1 covers the deficit recovery payments, and in table 1 that sets out what they are. So the figures that we've just been talking about in terms of should we pay them in advance or pay them monthly, the figures for this current year are £175,100. Those are being paid monthly because that's the arrangement, that's the default arrangement that the pension fund has in place for all of its employers. So those are being paid for by Shropshire Council at the moment, and a recovery amount from each member authority of £43,775 will be made as part of that. 7.2 sets out those compensatory added years benefits. So those have been identified for the current year at £32,057, which means a charge of just over £8,000 for each member authority. Section 7.3 sets out those lead authority costs. So these are things like the annual determination and administration of the pension payment mechanism, drawing up of the accounts, administration of the joint committee meetings, and the administration and approval of the valuation. Now, in this year, there have been some one-off costs because obviously we've had to set all of this up, create all of these reports, work through a number of issues. So those costs are estimated for the current year at £2,500, and then on top of that, we've got the standard annual charges was set out. So in total, with the one-off cost, that comes to £5,150. So split equally between each member authority, that's a charge of £1,287.50. Section 7.4 then sets out the other costs relating to WMS pension. So these are mainly the actuary costs, so the cost of the Shropshire County Pension Fund actuary identifying the costs for this particular employer, and then any external audit costs that we have. So this is about costs going out to third parties. Again, for this year, we had a series of one-off costs. Now, up until the point that this report was written, all of those one-off costs were being picked up by WME, by West Mercia Energy, and were being charged through to the owning authorities in that way. We've now drawn a line through that, and any charges relating to the current year to finalise this work are now included within this paper. So those total charges that now should disappear for the future are £4,865, again chargeable 25% to each authority, and then we have the regular costs which are around the actuary costs for the current year, but also there will be external audit costs. Those external audit costs won't start until next year because obviously we need to close the accounts for this year. So we don't, at the moment, we're having discussions with external audit in terms of what requirements and what we could put in place to audit those costs. That will come back next year in terms of a policy decision. So in total, when we put all of those charges together, they're set out in table 6 in section 7.5, and in total they come to £218,322, which would mean a charge for each member authority of £54,580.60. So that's just confirmed in section 8, and then, as I said, the pension mechanism this year, the payment mechanism this year is such that we will charge, we'll raise the invoices before the end of December in the next few days, and invoices will be due to be paid by the 15th of January 2021. Which does mean a slight cash flow issue for Shropshire, but given this is the inaugural meeting and setup, we're happy to cover that. So that's the introduction, Chair. The recommendations are set out in the report, just to confirm that they're happy to make the payments as set out within the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. That's really clear, I think, James. Do we have any questions that anybody wants to ask? I don't see anybody in the chat box, unless that's Peter still.
No, I'm fine. I'm quite happy with the report.
Can I just check with Councillor Davis over in Herefordshire? You're happy?
I think I'm not on mute, so yes, I'm happy.
No, great. Thank you very much indeed. Well, if I can just formally propose that we accept the recommendations, which is to approve the policy approach taken in their calculation of payment for the liability charges as set out, and to approve the amounts due to each member authority in respect to their liability charges in section 8. If I could ask Emily just to read the roll call for us. Oh, I need a seconder.
Happy to second. Peter Nutt.
Thank you very much, Peter. And over to Emily.
Thank you, Chair. It's Emily Marshall, Committee Officer. Just to confirm, it's to accept the recommendations as set out in the officer's report. So, Councillor Ray Evans.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Councillor Hardman.
Agreed.
Councillor Macy.
Agreed.
Councillor Nutting.
Agreed.
Councillor Davis.
Agreed.
And Councillor Harvey.
Agreed.
That's unanimous.
Thank you very much indeed. So we can now move on to the last item on our agenda, which is item 8, the scheme of delegations to the Treasurer. So this is where the Treasurer is about to delegate something to himself by the sound of it. So over to James to tell us why it's such a good idea.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a fairly simple paper. This just sets out the scheme of delegations that the WMS Pension Joint Committee is making to me as Treasurer. So it is literally so that we are all clear on the limit of the delegations that I have, and I'm clear on the remit of any decision making that I can make. Within the joint committee agreement, that joint agreement has been sent around to each of the authorities and is in the process of being signed now. All of these delegations are in line with and or set out in detail within that joint agreement. So there's no surprises here. It's just so that everybody understands from a governance point of view the basis on which I can and cannot make decisions, because what we don't want to do is to hold these meetings every time something comes up. We just want to try and keep that as minimal as possible. If anybody has any issues with those delegations, then by all means raise them and we can discuss those.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from members of the committee?
No, very straightforward.
Very straightforward, I thought. So if we're all agreed, I think we can move to approving these. If we can just move to the vote. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you. So the proposal is to approve the scheme of delegations set out in Appendix A. Councillor Ray Evans.
Agreed.
Councillor Hardman.
Agreed.
Councillor Macy.
Agreed.
Councillor Nutting.
Sorry, I was muted. Agreed.
Councillor Gemma Davis.
Agreed.
Councillor Harvey.
Agreed.
That's unanimous.
Right, thank you very much indeed. Well, item 9 was withdrawn, which was the joint agreement. The date of the next meeting is to be in September 2021, but we've still got to canvass a date, I gather. So hopefully we can find a date. I have to say September is always a terrible month for me, but we can but try. And of course, that presumes that I get re-elected in May. So if I don't see you in September, I'm sorry about it, but the electorate decided otherwise.
I think that applies to us all, Adrian.
I don't think it applies to the Hereford members, does it?
Oh, right. Oh, it does to Shropshire.
No,
yeah.
we're good.
Not Telford.
Not Telford, there you go. Well, the committee, this committee will possibly have some experience and still on it. Okay, thank you very much indeed for all attending, and as always, Emily, thank you very much indeed for tubing me along and getting me here on time. I'm grateful, and I wish you all a happy Christmas since it is December.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you very much
Best
indeed.
wishes, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.